What's going on?
Not a lot. Just came to hang with you, talk with you a little bit. You wanted to reminisce my climb to success or my demise. So here we are.
Yeah, this is a first for you. First podcast ever, huh?
Yeah, maybe the last too.
Oh, come on now. Well, let's get right into it.
You're listening to Off the Gas and On the Mic with Chase Holland.
Let's start here. What's your name?
Ronnie Plummer.
Okay. How old are you?
I am 65 years young. In July I was.
Can I get you just a little bit closer to your mic? You almost got to eat it so that everybody can hear you.
Okay, here, I'm chewing on it.
Perfect. So you 65 years old, you said?
Yes.
And you are the father to my mother.
Yep, Adrian is my child, my beautiful child.
So I was going to ask this at the end, but let's just start here. What's one of the funniest things that she's ever done throughout her childhood?
Well, one time I was painting the house and she found a bucket. She was my shadow. If I got on the roof, she'd climb up on the roof and be right there, and it would scare you to death, and you just have to grab her and walk her down. So I was painting the house, and it was a Nantucket blue or something. We had a red Toyota Tercel.
Was red, huh?
Was red, and she proceeded to paint it. She said, "Look, Daddy, I painted it." And so we got over that, and just stuff like.
How old was she?
Probably 3.
Oh, so she wasn't very old. I figured
3, maybe 4. She would throw a fit if I left her anywhere. So when I was redoing roofs after a storm, she came home and she took the roof off the doghouse, so I had to redo it. She was just a big help.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it. Well, that's kind of how she is today. She's very active and very
driven.
Very driven.
Very
for
driven.
Sure. So, as far as that goes, when were you born and where were you born?
I was born in July 22nd, 1959, on Lorraine Road in a house trailer next to a bridge in Gulfport, Mississippi. I was the product of an affair that got me here, and it was frowned upon for unwed mothers to be around, so that's where I was born, and then they took me to the hospital, and I'm really special because my mother chose me. She didn't have me. She chose me and loved me to pieces in spite of my precocious self, I'll say.
Well, I know that's one of the main things. Like everybody, especially obviously local, like in town, everybody pretty much knows you, and it's really funny. They all say that you have a really good personality. So hopefully we can capture it on this podcast. So, as far along the lines of that, how did you grow up?
Grew up with 4 older brothers. 4 older brothers survived Hurricane Camille. Days after that, we cleaned the yard. Well, between that, my parents divorced, and we stayed in the marital home. My older brother and my mom stayed in the marital home, and then after the storm, we went around picking up dead squirrels and blue jays, redbirds, and mockingbirds, and piles of them, and counting the dead. That's what we did after we got done cleaning the yard up and things like that.
That was for fun, or
yeah, it was for fun. It was something to do.
Oh,
it was different. But my brother, I had a good life interaction with my brothers. My oldest brother went to Vietnam. I remember being so upset when he went, and then Joe didn't go. He was in the National Guard. Joe's passed away. And there was no draft after that for a long time. So,
and then your other brother, my Uncle CM, is your right-hand man in business, huh?
He is. He's my oldest brother. He didn't know whether to be my dad or my brother. So he tore me up with a belt when I needed it. Sometimes I didn't need it, but it makes up for the times that I did, that he didn't get me.
Mm-hmm. So along the lines of that, you talked about how y'all picked up dead animals for fun and stuff like that after the hurricane. What did you do for fun? Because obviously you didn't have cell phones and TV and all of that stuff. Y'all have radio, obviously, back then.
Right, but we were outside. We weren't allowed to be in the house unless it was lightning. I mean, we could play in the rain, whatever. We would stop the drainage ditch up and skimboard at the neighbors. The water would get real deep, or we would go fishing or crabbing, swimming in the creeks.
Yeah, so
Riding bikes.
I know that you love to fish. You hunt a little bit, not near as much as you fish though.
I used to be a crazed hunter, and I grew out of it when I made some mistakes and got a divorce from your mom's mother, and I had to grow up the rest of the way. So, and I put that down.
Gotcha.
And I still fish, but and matter of fact, that's where Adrian gets her love for fishing, because she was in my hip pocket. We fished for everything. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, and that's what I remember. I know she told me that everywhere you went, she was right there, and if she wasn't there, she threw a fit that she wasn't.
She would jump up and down and cry and scream in the driveway when I left her if it was just too cold to take her or too dangerous, because I did a lot of sketchy stuff that I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyways.
Right.
So, but
so along the lines of all of that stuff, you grew up doing all of those activities and stuff. You graduated high school. Did you go to college?
I did not go to college. I didn't want to. I'll tell you a funny story. I sat my dad down. I had like 3 months to graduate high school. I disliked school. I didn't like most of the people that I went to school with were they were snotty. They thought they were better than everybody else, and they weren't. But that's
Right.
another story. But anyhow, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, this high school thing's not doing it for me.
Really?
No. I said, I want to quit. I just want to go ahead and go to work. And he told me very seriously, he said, son, I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to listen real good. He said, I'm raising no quitters. He said, you'll finish high school if I have to break every bone in your body and put you in a body cast and roll you back and forth to school every day till you graduate. And I said, yes, sir. And that was the end of that.
So you got your
I got to high school.
diploma.
I got the diploma. I didn't even go to my graduation. I didn't care for that at all. My sister-in-law, CM's wife, my oldest brother's wife, Joyce, she was my mother to me when my parents decided to take a vacation from being parents. She went and got my diploma from the high school. Matter of fact.
So were you working or were you fishing?
I worked in the summers. Matter of fact, another story. The Brim were bedding from the high school about 2 blocks away, and a buddy of mine, Rusty Easterland, we would skip school and go down and fish the bluegill beds. Well, we got caught skipping school, and I got caught by my aunt because we never left our house locked. And there was a glass of ice water sitting by the sink, and my daddy came home, and he said, I bet that little son of a gun's not in school. Called to school. I got in-house suspension. I had the rest of my senior year, I had 2 hours detention every day. It's the only time in my life I ever made A's and B's.
That's all you could do.
That's all I could do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you graduated high school, obviously you said you wanted to go to work. You were ready to go to work. What were you doing for work at the time?
I was working with my oldest brother. We were putting in concrete curbs and gutters and sidewalks, and we would frame houses. We would frame houses for my dad, and we put in curbs and gutters for these other developing companies, these men that were developing land. We'd put the curbs and gutters in for it, where they could put asphalt and build the roads. That's what we were doing. It's hard work, but we did it.
Right.
Enjoyed it.
Can I get you to pull your mic just a little bit closer? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I just want to capture all of it so that they can.
It's good. You probably have to decipher what I'm saying anyhow.
Not at all.
And then we moved on, and this plugged on and everything, and I have a short fuse, but I cool quick. So I would work with my brothers and my dad a little while, and then I'd go do something else. And I worked construction on and off all over the place. And finally came home. My dad told me, he said, a rolling stone never gathers any moss. It was what he was telling me. He said, you're never going to accumulate anything unless you put roots down and try to focus on one thing. He said, it's good to know how to do several things. He said, but you need to focus on one thing. So I worked with them a little while longer, and then I started building homes, framing homes for him and other people on my own. And then things got slow again, which is the way of construction. So I went off and worked for Brown and Root for some years, and J.E. Merritt and B.E. and K. And
So what were you doing for them?
I was a instrument fitter, and I was a pipe fitter helper starting out. Toted his tools.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep. Did that for a while and made it to journeyman in a few months, and went to work in New Augusta. Drove from Gulfport to New Augusta, 66 miles one way every day.
My goodness.
For a good while, for about 9 months. Supposed to have been there 6 weeks. It was a blessing. It was right before Christmas, and I was starving with 2 kids. I thought I was, but I wasn't.
Right.
Just poor management skills. But anyhow,
So is that where you learn to account for your dollars? I know one of the things that I've heard you say at a lot of family gatherings and stuff is watch your pennies and what's the rest of it?
Watch your pennies and your dollars will take care of themselves.
That's right. So is that where that comes from? Is it that time frame?
Yes. Well, a lot of it comes from my dad was a Depression child. He graduated high school in bib overalls, no shoes, bare-chested.
So he did graduate.
He did graduate. He graduated high school that way in Long Beach, Mississippi, and they were sharecroppers, and they had a cart and a mule cart, and they would drive it around to the beaches, the homes on the beach, and they would sell vegetables to the wealthy people, and they had a big shovel. They would scoop the poop from the mule out and put it in a bucket or something on the wagon. But then when they moved on to a place, and he went into service. And he bought 40 acres of land next to where they were sharecropping. And he gave half of it to his mother, and he said, save the other half. Matter of fact, we still own the other half. It's 19.7 acres there.
Really?
Off Wool Market, in Wool Market off Oaklawn Road, yeah. And we never did anything with it. We had a dove field there. We grew some pine trees and stuff. Some of it's wet. But anyhow, and after he got out of the service, he went and he was working up in Detroit, and he ran what you call a Yankee screwdriver, which is a screwdriver that you push down on it and it automatically screws in. Well, he ran it through his hand. He quit. That's where he met my mother. She was a coal miner's daughter, little bitty tiny woman, feisty, but she was very frugal.
We mine coal down here?
She was from Pennsylvania.
Oh, really? So what was she doing down here?
He met her in Detroit and brought her down here.
I got you. Okay.
Sally.
Okay.
And she would tear your ass up with a switch, too. But
you found that out, huh?
Found that out quick. Yeah, she's the one that picked me. But anyhow, my dad he was working with my uncle. They were taking down barracks buildings in Gulfport Field, which is Bayview now, and setting them up in New Orleans. Well, my uncle that he was working for didn't want to work, and he would gamble and drink. So my dad got his own crew, and he worked 6 days a week doing that and got books. And he hired an elderly carpenter that was very smart and taught him things. I don't remember what his name was, if it was Mr. Ed McNeil or whatever, but I know my mom held his hands while he passed away in the hospital. He was a really kind man. I never met him.
Really?
Yep. But anyhow, my dad got a reputation for his word being good.
Right.
And building. And he was just short. He was very true to his word and a hard worker. And that's who taught me the value of a dollar was my parents.
Really?
Yep.
Real quick. Grab your mic again.
I got it. Hello, Mike.
I'm sorry. That just it's right when you get everything gets good, you back away from it. And
well, it's getting too deep.
So that's where you learn the value of a dollar from your dad and all of his hard work and the stuff that he went through. And y'all carried on his traditions and stuff of keeping your word and having a reputable product across the South.
Exactly. My dad built the first brick home on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know that.
Sure did.
Where was it built at?
I think it was in Biloxi,
okay,
if I'm not mistaken. Tell you a story about that. He had built some homes in Bayview, and they built them with hand saws. They didn't have power tools and things then, and he couldn't sell them. And he had a realtor come up to him. He said, see him. He said, if you'll list them with me, he said, I'll sell them in a week. And he raised the price on them, and he sold them in a week. And I think the homes were like $2,000 or $3,000.
No way.
Yes, sir.
So there, first off, that's what blows me away. There were realtors back then.
Yes.
How did they market a house way back when?
I guess he just looked at the.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't Facebook or a website or anything for him to look at, you know?
Word of mouth.
Okay.
Word of mouth, basically. But he built a reputation, and he built a lot of homes around. And about 66 or 67, there were two guys from the shipyard came to him, Billy and Jack Houston, and they were good at welding and laying gas line and plumbing and everything. And told my dad, said, let's go in business together. You figure the jobs, the tonnage and the material, and get the material on the job and put up the money, and we'll do the work. And he did that. Well, Jack didn't stay long. Jack was a showy and a philanderer, but Billy was a worker, and they lived in Laurel, Mississippi, and they would drive down every day. But these guys could weld better than most people could write with a pencil, and they were just good backhoe operators, had worked for the gas company, and they made a fortune. I think my dad was taking, his part was $80,000 a year in the 60s, would have been like maybe $500,000 a year. And this was a passive part in business. He was still building two on the side. Well, anyhow, then Ike Dito, W.A. Lauren Ike Dito, his family had cattle in a slaughterhouse, Dito Packing Company. Well, he came to Dad. He had sold whiskey and punched cattle and saved his money. Well, he saw all this land. The taxes went sky high like they've done here recently around here. And he bought all this land up for property taxes.
Really?
And he told my dad, said, I've got the land. Let's develop it and make subdivisions. So they did, and they started Dito and Plummer Development Company and Dito Utility. They had the water and sewer. That's how that began. And this plugged along. There was a couple hundred houses in one subdivision for. Ended up being with about almost 1,400 homes on the water and sewer system.
And they were all brick homes and
stuff. They were all brick homes. Most of them were all brick homes.
Okay.
But he still developed land for other people around too. And let's see, he had grocery stores. He had a grocery store too. In Bellevue, he bought a little plane. Harry Love had ended up working with him, and Harry bought him out. And Harry ended up with like 5 or 6 convenience store way back in. But that's another thing. But over the years, and then let's see. So they did that, and I was groomed into the utility.
Yeah, where were you at that point of all of that taking place?
In the summers, I was cutting grass and threading pipe for these subdivisions they were doing, because PVC had just came out and they were afraid of it, so they would run it up so far, and then when it got a little higher, within shovel distance, like 2 or 3 feet of the top of the ground, they would stick pipe it out with galvanized steel pipes. And these brass gas cocks is what I call them. It's a galvanized valve with a brass tapered seal ball in it. Very difficult to work with. So anyhow, that's what I did in the summers and on. And then later in the 80s, they were plugging along, and I'd went off again and worked and all that, and came back. And my dad said, I got this piece of land over here I bought, and we're going to develop it. I'm buying the utility company. It's run down and broken. And he said, you're going to run it. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm going to hunt and fish and do what I want to do. I said, I'm not going to be tied down, no things.
So you told him straight like that?
Straight up, no. And I told my mother about it. She said, you ought to listen to him. Said he's successful. He said, you ought to listen to him. It'd be something you could find. I said, I just don't want to do it. So I relented, and I did it, and I got to know, and I read the meters, made repairs, and one of my oldest brother helped some too, and I had another lifelong friend was Gerald Husley. He was my oldest brother's best friend, and he became like a brother to me. They kind of babysitted me when I was young.
Gotcha.
Tried to keep me corrected or made me more of a delinquent than I was. But I would get into trouble, and they would try to work me to death. That's where I got my work ethic from. they try to work it out of me. All they did was give me a means to keep being a.
So what did trouble look like? Like how were you getting into trouble? Let's try to be as appropriate as possible.
Well,
but how did you get into trouble way back then?
Running around carousing with the wrong people, staying up all night drinking, and just
Gotcha.
raising hell. And my dad had a little shopping center in Bayou View when I was in high school, and one of his tenants had a dry cleaners. And he would call my dad, CM, your son's up here smoking and drinking. He'd rat me out. And I asked Daddy, I said, will you give him free rent or something? He said, no. He said, and I would be punished then. I would be beat with a belt or whatever. But but anyhow, so let's go back. He bought this water system. Well, anyhow, I relented. It was called Retreat Village, and it flooded.
Really?
And the guy that had it didn't pay the bills, and the residents beat holes in the lift station and let the sewer run into the river because they couldn't flush their toilets. And the well would be on again or off again. He wouldn't pay the light bill. So they paid the light bill. Well, he bought it, and we rehabbed it for a couple of years. Well, it ended up being something that I just always did. I did it after work and in the mornings before work. It was just common nature. And it built up, and I think, let's see, your dad was there, and he went with me. Adrian would go with me. If I had stuff to do, if I had extra work to do, she would come help me. Digging a service line or fixing something, she would hand me tools. She'd get right in there with me. Brandy, her sister, was not so much into that. She was kind of coddled.
Did her own thing to an extent?
Yeah, she wasn't really interested in being in her daddy's pocket.
Gotcha.
But anyhow, she loved me, and I loved her, still do.
Right.
But anyhow.
So real quick on all of that, your dad bought the water system, or what was left of it.
He bought what was left.
A broken system.
Yeah.
Was all of this the welded stuff, or had it become PVC?
This was a mismatched mess because it had 3, 4, 2.5-inch pipes. It didn't have any 6-inch lines. You didn't know what you were going to run into. This person that did this, if they had a leak, instead of fixing it, they would take a piece of clay pipe and run it to the ditch and just let it leak.
Really?
Wasting all that water and everything. Yeah, they really just didn't care.
Yeah.
But anyhow, when we fixed it, I would get in a manhole. We go to clean the manhole out with what you had a sewer ball, and it would shoot jets of water. This was kind of before the jets on the vacuum truck. And the pressure of the water, the weight, and it would spin, and it would clean that line and shoot it out. And I'd be in the hole, and here comes a snake out because there's holes in the pipe, and I'm jumping to the top to get out of there, away from it. They weren't poisonous, thank goodness, but still, it startles you.
Yeah.
But we finally got it fixed, and we developed the land up there. That's why he bought it, where he could develop. He had 20 acres he bought. And we logged it and developed it, and we built homes on all of it. There's 63 homes on it. We built all of them. And when times got slow, my dad had rat-holed a lot of money, so he would continue to build houses. We wouldn't just go at a fast rate. But we did everything in-house. We did the foundations, the framing, the trim, and sometimes, like during a storm, a hurricane, and there were no roofers, we even roofed the houses.
Really?
And insulated them. I would do that in the evenings for extra money, insulate a house or two to get extra money. And
yeah, so how long did it take you guys to produce a house? Like, how quickly did y'all throw a house up back then?
Those we could frame one in 3 days.
Really?
Could frame it. Foundation, you got 2 days on a foundation because of the plumbing and stuff. But we didn't pour. Sometimes we would pour a slab, but that's murder.
Really?
I mean, we poured sidewalks and curves, but a slab's a big thing. It's hard.
Right.
But, yeah, we built one after Hurricane Katrina when you couldn't get anything. We built one for Carolyn and Jim McGrew up in the northwest part of Harrison County. Well, it was west of Gulfport, up that way, kind of in Lyman area, Socia. And we put them in that house in 9 weeks.
Really? 9 weeks?
9 weeks.
Wow.
And I went on vacation for 2 weeks.
Nuh-uh.
Yes, I did.
So y'all threw a house up pretty much in 7 weeks.
We did it, and there was 3 of us. There was only 3 of us framed it. It was CM, my cousin Danny, and me.
Wow.
Well, and I got an ex-son-in-law that helped for a day or two, and he decided hello, honey, decided he was worth more than the rest of us and quit.
Wow.
So,
Well, George, if you're listening right now, you got to pick it up. 7 weeks through a house up.
no, it was 9 weeks.
9 weeks. Okay, 9 weeks.
9 weeks, Georgie.
So, anyways, that's impressive. So, as far as all of that stuff goes, what was your favorite thing to do within the water company and building houses? Like, what was the thing that you looked the most forward to whenever you were working? Or wasn't the worst? How about that?
The worst was the sewer, when you had to get in the lift stations and there was something messed up and all of it, and it's just so nasty. I never really minded getting muddy and dirty. What I didn't like is when we had left a valve out because we were going to save money, and then I had to cut it off, and I couldn't cut it off, and you're fixing it hot, and you've got your head just barely above the water trying to fix something blindfolded to get it done, and it's a trial.
Wow.
And reading meters, we could read 100 in an hour.
Wow.
Rolling
And that's
off the tailgate of the truck. Matter of fact, Adrian, your mom, and Brandy, they would read meters with me, and I would have the customers complain, "You got these kids reading meters?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "They've got better eyes than you and I both."
yeah.
So. But
And how? So for somebody listening, how did you read a meter? How do you read a meter?
You open the lid, you push the mud out of the way if there is mud, and the snakes and the spiders and the toad frogs, and you wipe it off with your finger. You don't use a screwdriver on it because it scratches
It'll
the glass.
scratch the glass.
Scratch the glass
Yep.
where you can't read it. And you wipe it off, and you read it from left to right. You read the first 4 numbers, unless it's a bigger meter and there's like 10 numbers on it. You read the thousands. But now these days, these new water companies, they charge by the gallon. So they take every gallon there is and charge you for it.
Really?
Yep.
So you've got somebody that's opening the cover, looking at all of that, and they're calling that number out. So you've got somebody driving a vehicle.
Writing the number too.
Writing while driving?
Yes.
And then you've got somebody that never gets in the back of the truck unless it's further than, what, a mile or two?
No, they get on the back of the truck, and the driver that drives caddy corner across.
Okay.
It depends on the direction how the meters are laid out. Usually they're down one side and back the other, and you have 2 people reading, so you've got to pay attention. There's no radio. You don't want to hear any chatter because you got to listen to these numbers.
Wow.
And you'll learn to know all the people's names, the names of their pets, and the names of their kids, where they live. You'll know all their habits.
All from reading the meters. Huh?
All from reading the meters and calls. You would get calls in the middle of the night. Some people had, some of these builders put the water heaters in the attic. When they bust, and the people in the middle of the night, they got water running in the house, and they don't know where to turn it off, so you got to go turn it off for them.
Wow.
So, but anyhow, that's how we ended up there. And then there was a little system in Wool Market, and it had 7 customers. And my dad had bought the land with my uncle, and I don't know if it was called Wool Market Acres, but you had to have mini farms. They were 3-acre lots, and I think there was 9 of them. And there was a well, and he had those customers, and he never would do anything with it. Matter of fact, he would change the oil in his truck. He'd pull it over the ditch and change the oil in his truck right by the well, which is a no-no, and the water well. So,
really?
But anyhow, he wouldn't do anything with it, so we took it over, and we developed a little subdivision called Scarborough's Fair up there, where your mom and dad's first house. I built them a home right there.
Right. Okay.
A brick home, and it was across the street from where I lived. And it was just about the time of Hurricane Katrina, and they came. My brother brought me a generator down from Tennessee, and they came and stayed at the house. I think you were born. You were a baby.
I was.
And we had air conditioning, and your mom and dad were so gracious about it that they let the power company people come sleep in their home when they got power and stayed with us, where they could shower and everything. And we showered and fed the power company people. And but we never lost water pressure during Katrina. We had one generator that my wife, Stephanie, talked me into not selling it. And during the eye of the storm, I walked across the street and cranked the generator. We never lost water pressure, thank God.
Wow. And I know that several down here were without water and power and stuff like that. That's impressive.
The whole coast.
Yeah, exactly. So that right there speaks volumes that you guys weren't without water.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember during Hurricane Katrina, they had us in between in the hallway. Yep. And then I don't really remember that side of it, which I was 2 years old. I was too young to really remember that part of it.
Well, so the water gig, my brother and I were still building, and my dad had gotten elderly, and he was backing out a little bit, and I'd always been like the operator and did the paperwork and everything, and my aunt helped in the office, and I didn't realize what was going on till she left, and I moved the office to Wool Market after Katrina because we had sold Retreat Village, the original place in Oakland Manor North. We sold it to the city of Gulfport. I made that deal over the phone with Mayor Ken Combs. It's the easiest deal I've ever made.
Really?
Matter of fact, I was digging out a busted water line, and he calls me. He says, Ronnie said, would you sell the system to me? I said, I guess so. He said, well, what you want for it? I said, well, it's worth between this and this. He said, if I hit it in the middle, is that good? I said, yes, sir. He said, done.
Wow.
Done. So we did that, and we moved on to Wool Market. And we had that up there, and then we started another system in the lower part of Wool Market, and we got with I forgot the man's name. He's a builder, Conrad Martin. He's a very well-known builder in Jackson, Mississippi. He's done really, really well. And he was developing a subdivision. He said, I don't want to be in the water business. He said, I will help y'all with the money on the well and put the well in, because the well's expensive. And then I think it was like $120,000 for just the hole in the ground. Now it's like $450,000 for a 6-inch well, 8-inch well. It's crazy.
Yeah, and how deep is a well that runs a system like that? How deep is that?
It depends on the aquifer. That's where your water comes from in the earth. If it's good stuff, there it was 700 feet, and up in the northern part of Wool Market, it was like almost 800. Beautiful water, though. Looked like the water from Florida, off Florida Bay.
Really?
Just beautiful, beautiful blue water.
700 feet in the ground.
700 feet in the ground.
That's incredible.
700 to 800 feet in the ground. But anyhow, and we developed that, and then Mr. Arledge called, and we ran Henry Arledge, the school superintendent, and we ran water down to him. And then a friend of mine that I lost a couple of years back, Noah Saunders, he developed a trailer park next to the school, and we serviced it, and it was pretty good for a while till things went downhill. Noah sold that and everything, and then we got slammed by layers of government, and we couldn't grow anymore. So we were in the process of selling this system there to the city of Biloxi, and the storm hit. And it just got put to the wayside, and politics got in the way. And 9 years later, we finally sold it. We didn't do well on it, but we got rid of it. And we moved up the other way, and it grew and grew and grew.
So is it too many hands in it? Is it ran like the system in Wool Market now? Like, would you say it's successful, or
what down there? It's hard to be successful with the demographics that's there, but Biloxi runs it, and I got a buddy, it's a friend of mine, and he does a good job doing it, and they do the best they can. But
not like if you were running it, though.
No, I'm more hands-on. I'm very nervine about things.
So let's just kind of go back through everything. You didn't want any part of the water business, the water company stuff. Your dad told you that basically you're doing it, and your mom was like, you should listen. So
they were divorced, and I'm getting it from both sides. Yeah.
So you end up doing it, and it ends up being one of the most successful things that you've done. Obviously, maybe the most successful thing.
What my dad used to tell me, he said, come on, son, it'll be grocery money. Well, grocery money to him might be $100. It may be $100,000. But what he was talking about, it's money coming in like mailbox money that while you're sleeping, you're making a living, and that's the key. That's the key.
Right.
And you can stick your neck out and do other things if you've got money coming in.
That's right.
And that's how you become successful.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever, obviously you got to have credit in life, but are you a person that uses credit for anything? Or like when you go to purchase something, are you afraid to purchase it if you don't have cash in hand, or will you put it out on credit? Being from the way you grew up. If you don't have it, you won't spend it.
I'd rather wait and pay for it, but sometimes if their money using their money instead of yours to get it and paying notes on it, if the interest is low enough, you do that. We've bought heavy equipment like that.
Right.
In different things.
I was just wondering how like your perspective on that. Like if you don't have it, you don't spend it, or if you're willing to.
I don't spend it unless it's going to make me money.
Gotcha.
Unless I just have to have it, it's emergency.
I got you.
But
so I cut you off whenever I asked it. But what was one of the coolest / most fun things about the work that you were doing, whether it be building houses or the utility side?
I like building the houses mostly because you could see what you did at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
And the big part to the water company is you had a rapport with all your customers, and they either liked you or hated you. And you know what? And I don't know. I'm a smart aleck or smart ass, whatever you want to call it. And some of my customers, it would get off with them, and I'd finally just tell them, I said, I'm just me. I can't help it. And they would get over it. And I said, you're the only one mad. I'm not mad at you. Why be mad at me?
That's right. That's right. So along the lines of that, what is one of the craziest stories that you've had throughout owning the utility company?
The utility company. I was working. This is when my dad and Mr. Dito still had Dito Utility Company.
Honey, come on.
And we were fixing a water service at the Bible Baptist Church on Dito Road. And it's a 1-inch line, and the preacher's out there, and you got a lot of rubberneckers. And there's this lady coming up, and she's got her head sticking out the window, just looking. And my dad sitting there, and he sees that looking by, and he says, don't do it. I said, what do you mean? And about that time, I wheeled that 1-inch water hose, was shooting at about 60, 80 pounds, like 120 feet, and I drenched her. Well, guess what? It was the preacher's wife. He said, she just went to the beauty salon. I said, I guess she'll have to go back now. Well, she didn't rubberneck anymore.
Oh, yeah. I bet she's straight ahead.
My dad's doing all he can do to keep from laughing because the lady was just, I don't know. If you're not going to help, get out of the way.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's interesting. And so I asked you earlier, too, about my mom and some of the funny stories about her. But you said my dad worked with you for a little while, reading meters and things like that.
He did, and your dad is not much on snakes. And one day we're reading meters, and I'm driving, and he's on one side, and we're visiting and cutting up and all that stuff. And we would go fix things, and he'd get kind of grossed out. Some of it was really nasty, but we did it anyways. And I told him, I said, wow, look, it's a beautiful green snake. And I jump out to get it. Well, I get the snake, and I look up, and the truck's like a quarter mile down the road, and Chavis is going, put it down, and I'll come back and get you. Just put it down. I was going to take it home because I used to bring snakes and frogs and stuff home in my pocket to your mother and let them play with them. I mean, we'd go catch a green snake or whatever, flying squirrels. I remember one time we went to catch a flying squirrel. We caught somebody's little white mouse. It was crazy. We'd go fishing in the river, and I'd pull up the baby alligators. Sometimes I'd pull up the alligators that were bigger than our boat, and that's why your mother didn't want you in the boat with me when you were little.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, she didn't want you. Yeah, she wanted to protect you from me. I guess she thought I was nuts. She'd have been right. But anyhow, we had some good times. Another funny story. When your mom and dad lived across the road, we put in them invisible fence. I put it in first because I had a dog named Bear, and she would go take the neighbors' hats and the kids' balls and dig up the plants and bring them home to me. So, and I ran over her one day, and it didn't kill her. So we we put up the invisible fence, which is wire in the ground with a radio frequency collar that would shock them.
Right.
So your dad put one in for his dog, their dog.
Yep.
I think it was Bandit.
Yep.
He was a red heeler, sweet dog.
Notorious for running out in the road and getting hit, though.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep, notorious for that. But anyhow, he did. He got hit. Had a
Several times,
pin,
2 or 3.
pin in his leg and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, Chavis goes, and I'm pulling over there. We were still working together, and he had this shock collar in his hand. He's got his finger on the contacts, and he's right there. And I've turned the corner, and he's jumping around dancing to see, because he didn't think it was going to hurt. Well, it lit him up, and I'm laughing my butt off. And he never did that again. But anyhow.
Like a cartoon, you could see a skeleton, huh? It lit him up.
It was funny. He was doing that dancing, that break dancing and that tiptoeing. Yeah, it was good.
The other thing, he told me this story too. He said that y'all used to meet at your house before y'all go to work on houses and stuff.
Yeah.
And he eat a Pop-Tart for breakfast every morning. He said he ended up feeding Bear a Pop-Tart, a piece of his Pop-Tart.
Yes.
And she wasn't it she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a girl.
She
Her name was Honey Bear, but we called her Bear.
I got you. Yeah, she let it out in the house, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. He had tore her stomach up.
yeah. So I remember he told me that story as well, but yeah, I think it's awesome that you had such a good relationship with my mom and then my dad and stuff, of course. And then I think it's interesting everything that you've told us about the water company and then the construction side of everything. But along the lines of all of that, the final question, and I'll let you go. If you could go back to being 21 years old and having only the knowledge you have today, you'd be in the exact same setting that you were in at 21, but you would have only the knowledge of today in mind. What would you do anything differently? And before I let you speak, disclaimer, you know, everything happens for a reason. You're ultimately where you're at today for a purpose. So, but what would you do?
I think I would be in the graveyard, or if I had the knowledge, that because I would have had the means to get in more trouble, and I wouldn't change anything from my past because it's made me who I am. That's one thing my dad used to tell me. He said, "You're ashamed of nothing you've done." I said, "Mm-mm." I said, "Y'all all try to hide it. I own it." I said, "I did it. I'll own it."
Yeah,
but
you do that still today, for sure.
I do. If I don't stick my foot in my mouth, I stick my whole leg in my mouth. One time, I asked a Sunday school teacher, I congratulated her on being pregnant. My wife's going, "Don't do it." I said, "No, I got this," because her and the other guy got married and they didn't have children together. I said, "Wow, it's so nice that y'all finally going to have a baby." And she goes, "Oh, I'm not pregnant." And I went, "Oh my God, don't you know I've given that church Sunday school class thousands of dollars over the years for that?" Ugh.
Jeez, y'all, that's impressive.
Oh, I got one more story
What's
about
that?
your dad. We're working on a house after Katrina. We weren't even, because things went up after we built, and we got the God, I can see his face. McGrew's.
Yep.
Jim and Carolyn McGrew's house built. We had one that we were going to start. We were started and we were under contract, and prices had went up so much, and we said we would build it anyways, you know, and we did, and we didn't make a lot on it, but we didn't lose. We were blessed for doing it, and the people that bought it are really good people, and they're great neighbors. They're still there today.
Right.
And anyhow, your dad and I were down there framing, and my brother, see him, your dad calls him Unc. Well,
Yeah.
anyhow, I bought me a pair of these bicycle pants that fit real tight, and I hid them under my shorts, my cutoffs, and I got up on that walkboard with your dad, and I slipped them off, and I'm in them, and I look like Freddie Mercury in bicycle shorts, and he's going, "What the hell have you got on?" And see you, my brother's laughing. But it got off with him. But it was hilarious if you could have seen the look on his face. But anyhow, I've had a good life. My parents loved me. My family loved me. And I was difficult to get along with when I was young. I still can be difficult to get along with. But
No.
I love people. I love people. I love to tease people and make people laugh because, I mean, you got to smile and just take things. And you got to remember this, for every person that wants to see you succeed, there's 50 that want to see you fall on your tail because they're not willing to do the work, what it takes to get there.
Yep.
I was told the other day that my name was actually Richard, and you could take it short for Dick. And I rode a high horse, and everybody hated my guts. And my response to this person was, I said, well, who else is on the list that hate my guts besides you? And he couldn't say a word because he was a hater.
Yep. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. I
Hey,
really appreciate your time and everything.
You know, it was a pleasure. I love you, son.
Well, I love you too, Peepaw.
All right.
We'll have to get you back on again at some point.
We'll do it again. I'll write some of this craziness down.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new here, y'all subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're on. We hope to see you back. If you learned anything, if you enjoyed something about it, please leave us a comment and let us know what it was. If you didn't like something about it, let us know as well. And we'll catch y'all in the next one.
Thank you for listening to Off the Gas and On the Mic with Chase Holland. What'd you think about what you heard? Please follow for more content just like this.